Hi, this is Cindy from Bosie Creative Living. I'm going to try canning some pumpkin today. I ordered a pressure canner. There are quite a few things that the FDA says do not use water bath canning for, and pumpkin is one of them. So, there's my pressure cooker, fancy lid for that. And here's the brand I went with. I like the size of it because you can actually do your smaller jars in a double layer in here. They can stack. There's like dividing racks to use for that. And there's a lot of issues, safety issues, so nothing explodes. They've covered a lot of the issues with some safety devices on here. So that was one I rather liked. The price wasn't too outrageous. So we're going to test this out today. I did do the initial cleaning already. I kind of left the water sit in here and it left a ring around it, but it's not going to harm anything. I am going to dump this water out. It has some baking soda in it. That was one of the things they recommended with the first cleaning, is to use the baking soda in it. And you also use that when you do the pressure canning. Put a little bit in there. There's the pumpkins I have brought in from my shed. So they're pretty cold yet. It's probably 45, 46 degrees in there. So they kept pretty well from, these were all picked end of October. And it's now middle of January. Well, they look just like when I picked them. So I'm going to let those warm up a bit, just so my hands don't get so cold when I'm cutting them up. Some of these smaller pumpkins were the Lady Godiva pumpkins, and they're supposed to be better for seeds. We'll see what the flesh looks like. These were maybe Connecticut field pumpkins, I think. I've already chopped up one that's bigger than this. So I have those right here, and I had cut them up with the skin on and everything because I actually did that Christmas morning, was in a rush, and froze them like that. So I was going to can these, but I think since they're like this and kind of mushy already, I think I'll roast them and then freeze them again and keep some for the dog. I found out Lily absolutely loves pumpkin. She'll eat carrots and stuff, but these pumpkin chunks, she'll eat it skin and all. And that's really good for her. You like that, don't ya? So you do the chunks with water around because the temperature gets more evenly through the food, rather than if it was a puree. It takes longer to heat all the way to the center of it. And pumpkin, they want you to be pretty careful with. I don't know. Our old ancestors probably didn't do it as carefully and lived, but I'm not going to take any chances. Another item you'll see me wearing when I start chopping up the pumpkins. These gloves are cut resistant. Now, since I'm alone, I'm not going to take any chances. And I'm kind of wimpy when it comes to bad cuts anyway, so I wouldn't want to have to drive myself to the hospital. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to wear those gloves. They're washable. I can wash them even if they get pumpkiny. Better safe than sorry. I'm going to do them at 280 degrees because I'm at a higher altitude. I'm right around 6,000 feet above sea level. So the altitude does affect cooking somewhat. And I usually just set it a little longer for time and a little higher for temperature. So if you're at a normal altitude, you could just do probably 275, 250 and roast your pumpkin that way. I actually had roasted some pumpkin and I added it to some spaghetti sauce. With some masticcioli and Parmesan cheese and basil and oregano from the garden last year. It actually blended quite well with the tomato sauce I used, which was also from my garden a couple years ago that I had canned. And it blended really well with the Italian stuff, having chunks of pumpkin in it, surprisingly. Alright, both pans are in there. I'll check that in half an hour and switch the pans around and maybe even turn over the chunks of pumpkin. Yeah, you know what kind of dishwasher I have? It's called me. I did not get a dishwasher with my house, since it's just me here. Hot soapy water is all you need to do if you're pressure canning. If you were doing just the hot water baths, you would have to do the process of sterilizing your jars first in the hot water bath. Just an extra step. So I'm just washing a few jars here. If you're lucky enough to have a dishwasher, you can just do that, run it through there. Second pumpkin. Here we go for the second pumpkin. There's what I got from one pumpkin, so we will add to that. The seeds in this one aren't as large, but I'll just mix them with the other one. When I open up my Lady Godiva pumpkins, I want to see what the difference is with the seeds. Much easier to cut. And some of the seeds look shriveled in that one. They may have turned orange before it got a chance to mature. There were a couple at the end of the season. That's kind of interesting. Seeds are darker. Although Lady Godivas are supposed to be less of a hull-less seed on them. But that's a really dark orange. I'd say these are definitely the Lady Godiva seeds. It doesn't look like the shell is as thick. The ridges around the edges of the shell are definitely thinner, not so much of the shell there. So I think these will be interesting to roast and see. I think you can see the seed through the shell, actually, why they look darker. I'll keep those separate. Actually, the ones in this really ripe looking one, they look like the best. I've had the pumpkin roasting in here. I just flipped them over. It's been in 45 minutes or so. And I flipped them over to get them a little brown on the other side, on the bottom, because they were skin side down. That'll give them a little more flavor. They're basically going to be dog treats. I'm going to freeze these. They were frozen once when I cut them fresh, but after they're cooked, I'm going to freeze them again until I'll just take out what she needs to eat for a few days and keep them in the fridge. Okay, now I've got my gloves still on. Handy cut resistant gloves. These are called Nitex. Got them on Amazon. I can use these when I'm working outside with sharp tools and stuff too. Or with my stained glass things. So I think I'll be ordering another pair, so I have a pair for food stuff and a pair for draft. And I'm just going to cut these into wedge-shaped chunks, something like that. And I do want to peel them, and I believe I read if you roast them a little bit that it's easier to peel. I'm going to look up some of those methods and kind of see what works the best. I'm thinking after my dog treats are roasted there, I could just throw these in, and after they soften up enough, get the peel off. These are just pumpkins, got such a tough rind on it. I'm glad I have the gloves on. I am gonna try one thing here. If it works well, hey, you know what? This is how I'm gonna do it. Never mind the roasting. This is working really easy. I'll just get that tough part off. And I'll cut them in chunks and put them in the jars. Oh yeah. Definitely. This works pretty good. And that peeling them, I even got the stringy stuff off for the most part. A little bit won't hurt. Just cut these in chunks that can go in jars. One of these is pretty much a necessity for canning. It keeps your rim clean. Okay, done with that part. Boy, it's getting humid in here, really warm. I have 7 quarts of pumpkin from the two larger pumpkins, and I can fit 7 quarts in my canner at one time, so that's where I'm stopping. I might think of something to do with the rest, but this is all I'm going to can. I think 7 quarts of pumpkin will get me through a year easy. So I'm going to get my recipe out, see if I add salt to the boiling water to cover the fruit up in here. Look at this mess. Okay, the recipe calls for half a teaspoon of salt per quart. So I'm doing the cold pack method, and so I'll put the salt in, and then I'm putting boiling water to within half an inch of the top of the jars. Okay, the salt is just on top of the fruit. I'll call pumpkins a fruit, I believe they are. And I'm just scooping water out of there because it's boiling. And I'll add some water to that. You can see an air bubble. Use something plastic to poke around in there to release the air bubbles. They say do not use a metal knife. So I will do this to each one. You can see a lot of bubbles coming up. And what this does is prevent the contents here from expanding too much after you have your lids on here and you're boiling it in the processor. This will expand, that's why you have half an inch at the top. And if there's a lot of air bubbles, it expands more and it can make your jars explode and crack even. Or sometimes they just won't seal well. And you also want to wipe your rims. I think I have a chip in that jar. I think I'll be transferring that to another jar. It would probably keep it from sealing. I will throw that jar out. Look at all those fabulous pumpkin seeds. I will soak those in water and clean them up. And then I will add salt to the water, let them soak maybe overnight in a good strong salt water solution. And then I bake them. I don't like to use a lot of oil or fat when I roast my pumpkin seeds. Okay, so let's switch that one. I think the rest of the rims are all okay. Yeah, that one actually definitely has a chip in it. And then I had washed my lids in very hot soapy water. Yourself a good recipe online to follow. Don't just count on me. Disclaimer, disclaimer. Yeah, I am confident these will turn out okay, but things can go wrong. Sometimes they recommend putting the lids, at least the flat part of the lid, in boiling water to sterilize those. With pressure canning, I'm not going to do that. These should be just fine with the hot soapy water. And I rinsed them off well. I think I'm good. And just set your lids on there. Make sure you don't have two lids. And then you'll just screw these on. I'll go back over here and make sure they're fairly tight, not super tight. You want them snug. But actually a little air wants to escape from them as they're getting heated up enough. Okay, I added more water in there. You're going to need a jar lifter. They sell them, different types of them. This one's pretty much an antique, as you can see. Okay, I just scooped out a couple of these pans of water because when pressure cooking you don't want the water to cover the jars. So I'm about halfway up the jars. You don't want it to have so little water in that it evaporates. Okay, the lid just twist on. You have these little different height. You just line that up so that it twists into lines up very nicely. We'll set this to the number 3, I think is 15 pound, and we're going to wait until steam comes out of here, and then we time it for 20 minutes. You can hear the noise this is making, and there's steam. I don't want to touch it. Steam is very hot, be careful. Steam's coming out of that part. The pressure is still at 0. And no steam here yet. So in spite of all that noise, I am not ready to start timing it. Alright, I have steam. So I have set my timer for 20 minutes. There we go. It is almost at the 15 pound mark, so I'm starting my timer. Alright, it is done. I was kind of surprised. I lost some fluid out of some of them. Some are still bubbling. They have all sealed though. I read that if you lost more than half the fluid, use that one first. And any that you think are more fluid gone than you want, use those first. So this one probably is missing the most. It just tends, when everything expands and boils, it can come out of there. I probably could have had screwed the caps down a little tighter. It might have been a little better. But it doesn't affect the quality of the food in there, so there we go. I have 7 quarts of chopped up pumpkin. Should be pretty good. You can actually eat this a lot like squash, so I'll find lots of uses for it. 7 quarts of pumpkin, and actually I found 2 pumpkin halves, so it really was only 1 medium-sized pumpkin to make 7 quarts. It goes a long way. So I have more pumpkin. I put it in the fridge. I could do another batch tomorrow if I feel ambitious. Well, thanks for joining me and watching, and again, bye from Cindy at BOC Creative Living. Please like my video, comment if you have any questions, share it if anybody else you know might need help with that. It was actually my first time doing this, but I've canned with the water bath quite a bit before, so it wasn't totally new. Okay, see ya!